if you're a little skinny and you want to get bigger, at least at some point, you should probably have purposeful periods of 12 to 20 weeks where you gain a quarter pound, half a pound a week on average.
Purposeful periods for 12 to 20 weeks where you gain a quarter pound a week. That sounds a heck of a lot like just main gaining. And so why stop at 12 to 20 weeks? Why don't you just for 5 years straight put a quarter pound on a week? Coach Greg, and today we're going to go over one of Mike's videos, Mike Israetel, and it says 5 things everyone gets wrong about gaining muscle. I'm going to watch these 5 things and tell you, is Mike right or is Mike wrong? Now, previously, Mike was wrong about bulking. He thought that if you bulk up and get really huge, you're going to put on a lot of muscle. But in the end, it resulted in him needing to get surgery because his fat cells, they multiplied. He was carrying extra body water, extra skin, and so on. And so I've been preaching for decades now that you should main gain. Everyone knows it. And slowly, year after year, people start saying, you know what, Greg was right after all. Watch the video and see, is Mike making sense or am I making sense?
Thank you, Greg.
The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And what have I consistently been showing you? That I'm right, that I know what I'm doing.
But Dr. Mike, you were not always famous and wealthy and you're really short and ugly.
Yeah, I know, goddammit.
I wish people could just take my word for it. If Greg says this is true, it's probably true. You're going to be right more times than you're wrong. And so if you're a betting man like Togi and you bet on Coach Greg, probably going to make a lot of...
What the fuck? I personally have made almost all of these mistakes. Definitely 4 out of 5.
And so Mike is saying, look, I learned from my mistakes. I used to think these things, but now over time I've learned my lessons and now I understand. Mike's 40. I'm 40.
Number one thing that a ton of people get wrong, assuming that you don't have to bulk, assuming that you don't need to gain weight if you're interested in getting much more jacked.
And so in mistake number 1, Mike gets it wrong. He says, assuming you don't need to gain weight if you're interested in getting much more jacked. You don't need to get fat in order to get much more jacked. Okay, so hear me out. You start at 160 pounds with 15% body fat, and then 5 years later, you're 190 pounds with 15% body fat. You kept the body fat the same percentage, and slowly over time, you gradually put on muscle. Maybe it's a pound a month, maybe it's a half a pound, whatever. That is exactly the opposite of what he's saying. He's saying, no, you need to bulk and cut to put on muscle. You don't. You really don't. Why can't people just believe me? Do you need to have your body fat percentage go up in order to build muscle? Of course you don't. And so why do you think you need to bulk and cut? Now, do you need a calorie surplus? You could argue yes, you could argue no. It depends on your idea of a calorie surplus. If by calorie surplus you mean more calories than you're eating right now, then yes. Perhaps you need 30, 50, maybe 100 calories extra per day in order to use that to build muscle. And I don't care what calorie tracker you have, you're probably not going to be able to track that accurately. And so what can you do? You look in the mirror and you say, yeah, I like what I see. And you slowly put on muscle. Every week, yeah, I look about right. You slowly put on muscle. If you notice you're getting a little bit fatter, you say, yeah, I probably eat less. And you notice you're getting a bit leaner, you say, I probably should eat more. That's it. There's nothing else. You don't have to plan out a 3-month bulk and a mini cut and a deload. None of that stuff.
And by physics definition, by physiological definition, you cannot maintain your way from 160 pounds to 190 pounds. It is impossible.
By physics definition, you can't maintain your way from 160 to 190. You literally can. It takes about 2,700 calories to gain 1 pound of muscle. Let's say you added in 50 extra calories of protein per day. You can't even track it, but let's say you were able to do it. Obviously, some days you burn more, some days you burn less, whatever. Every 54 days, you put on about 1 pound of muscle. In 4.43 years, you would have put on 30 pounds of muscle. That's by eating 50 calories more per day than you needed to exist at that weight. And so is it a bulk? If you want to call that a bulk, by all means. If you want to call that a lean bulk, call it a lean bulk. If you want to call it main gain, call it main gain. Call it whatever the Turk that you... Oh, which by the way, if you add in Turk, it's going to make it a heck of a lot easier. Turk Builder Max, code Greg, 15% off. And if we are in fact sold out, get on the VIP list. You'll get notified immediately before it gets listed so that you can buy it before it sells out. And so 50 calories a day in less than 5 years, you're going to put on 30 pounds of muscle. 30 pounds of muscle will transform any physique from looking perhaps below average or average to stupendous. 30 pounds of muscle is a lot. Most of you probably not going to put it on in 5 years or less unless you're on steroids. Some people can with amazing genetics, but it only takes 50 extra calories. And so why do you think you need to bulk when 50 extra calories is enough to do it?
You're going to have to bulk one way or the other.
And so Mike is saying you're going to have to bulk one way or the other. No, Mike. You're not. You're just not. Why do I have to explain myself? You go from 160 to 190 without bulking. You slowly put on muscle without gaining any fat. You could even get leaner. You started at 20% body fat and you're 160, and then you get up to 190 and you're 12% body fat. You put on muscle and you lose fat at the same time. You also maintain. Whatever way you want to do it, you can. Does that mean you can't bulk and cut, that it won't work? Nope. But it means that if you don't want to get fatter, you don't have to. There's no rule that says you have to bulk up in order to build muscle.
There's this huge thing going over the fitness internet about like bulking is a myth and bulking is stupid. Is bulking dead?
Yeah, it is. It is. You don't need to bulk. Now, if you're at 5% body fat and you're shredded, you just finished your show, yeah, you're going to have to bulk up. Will Tennyson is not going to put on muscle if he continues to train while weighing 177 pounds. He needs to bulk up. But for the majority of you, 95% of you who are somewhere between 15% body fat and anywhere up to 30+%, you don't need to bulk. And so y'all watch Jeff Nippard's video, him and his brother. His brother started at 36+% body fat and then went on a bulk. Do you really think he needed to bulk up to put on muscle? And did you see what happened? In the first month, he put on 12 pounds of muscle, according to DEXA, which everyone thinks is so accurate, including Mike Israetel. I said it's not accurate. And what happened for the next 6 months? He lost muscle. Do you really think that the natural with newbie gains put on 12 pounds of muscle in a month and then never gained any for 6 months straight after that? Or do you think the DEXA scan was wrong? And so what I would have done is, hey, you're at 36%, you're going to go to a slow cut all year. Every month he goes down perhaps 1%. A year later, he went from 36% to 24%. Maybe he weighs the exact same. He maintains. Replaces the fat with the muscle. He does a body recomp. You can call it what you want, but he didn't need to bulk up. What are you going to do? Get him to cut and go back up again, back up and down, up and down? You don't need to do it.
But the idea that you could just maintain or gain your way or gaintain your way into a jacked physique is just not true almost every time.
It's just true every time. Mike, it's the opposite of what you're saying, and so I'm sorry, I disagree with you. I believe that my evidence is more compelling than his. I think that if you're 160 pounds and you want to be eventually 190 pounds, you don't have to bulk and cut. You can maintain your 20% body fat the entire time and put on muscle. Why do people think that they have to do this? Oh, I just have to for 3 months force feed, get bigger, eat more calories, then cut, up and down. No, you don't.
If you're a little skinny and you want to get bigger, at least at some point, you should probably have purposeful periods of 12 to 20 weeks where you gain a quarter pound, half a pound a week on average.
Purposeful periods for 12 to 20 weeks where you gain a quarter pound a week. That sounds a heck of a lot like just main gaining. And so why stop at 12 to 20 weeks? Why don't you just for 5 years straight put a quarter pound on a week and have it all be muscle? Would that be a bulk? Oh, I bulked for 5 years. I put on a quarter pound of muscle a week. It's called maintaining. That's what it is. If you don't get fatter and you keep your fat the same and you put on muscle, that's what maintaining actually is. And that's what you all should be doing.
Maintain for a little bit, cool off, cut off the fat, and then restart that process.
You notice how he said then you cut the bit of the fat off, you go for a period and cut a bit of the fat off. You don't need to go through this period of getting fatter and getting leaner. That is what bulking is, bulking and cutting. You don't need to do it. You can just continue to put on muscle. If you don't get it from this, you're just not going to get it.
Number 2, on the opposite side of this, you end up gaining weight way too fast.
And so mistake number 2 wouldn't exist if you didn't do mistake number 1. If you maintain, there is no number 1 and there is no number 2. How much easier is this? The 5 mistakes that you're making, if you don't bulk and cut, You've already gotten rid of 2. By definition, you've already finished 40% of them without even trying. You don't bulk and cut in the first place. And so mistake number 2 is gaining weight too fast. And you know how you don't gain weight too fast? You main gain. It solves it.
I'm not saying you're dreamer bulking. That's a different problem we'll run into later.
And so which one of us has done this in the past? The person who hasn't had surgery or the person who got surgery? Mike made this mistake. He was dreamer bulking. He gained too much weight. And if this could happen to Mike, who has a PhD and is highly intelligent, what are the chances are it could happen to you? Mike knows better, and yet it still happened to him. And so what are the chances you might make a mistake? Think of it. He studied this for years. He has a PhD, yet it still happened. And so if you're just going to the gym and eating, what are the chances you're going to make a mistake? Very, very high. But if you main gain, you're not going to make a mistake.
But what you end up doing is you gain like 1 to 2 pounds per week, which I used to say was a good idea, and that was wrong.
How many of you are going to go on a bulk and you gain 1 pound a week and that's too much? Mike now realizes that was wrong. How many of you out there go on bulks and gain less than 1 pound a week? Raise your hand, and I know there are no hands out there because none of you go on bulks and gain less than 1 pound a week. Half the guys I see going on bulks are gaining pounds in a matter of days. I started my bulk, I'm up 2 or 3 pounds, it's been day 1. I see it all the time. Gaining less than 1 pound a week when you're purposely on a bulk is going to be very difficult. Essentially, you're half dieting, not dieting, you're not sure exactly what you're doing. But
what's wrong with that? Well, it turns out there are a few things wrong with that. Probably the major one is muscle gain accretes. Muscle gain accretes very slowly.
Muscle gain is very, very slow. 10 times slower than fat gain. And so if you gain 10 pounds of fat, you probably gained 1 pound of muscle. And so how do you like that ratio? And so does it not make more sense to slow your roll? Slow the heck down. If you're gaining weight and you notice it, it's probably going to be mostly fat. Unless you're on steroids and you're suddenly growing faster than last time, you don't suddenly make changes every single day. Oh my goodness, I'm so much bigger. Take your time.
If you're only gaining 1/4 pound of muscle per week, if you gain 1/2 pound of weight, you gain 1/4 pound of muscle, 1/4 pound of fat.
And so Mike is saying a lot, but what he's generally saying is that 1/4 to 1/2 pound of muscle in a week is the most you could ever hope for. That would equate at that pace to 13 to 26 pounds of muscle in a year. That is a lot. And so 1/4 pound per week, it's really plenty. And so how many of you plan to say, I'm going to go on a bulk, I'm going to put on 1/4 pound a week? Most of your scales aren't even that accurate. And so how are y'all tracking 1/4 pound gain per week? Don't say you're going to use a fitness tracker and it's going to spit out 2,332 calories. This is what I need to gain 1/4 pound a week. It doesn't happen like that. And so just live your life. Look in the mirror. Make sure that you're not getting fat or that you're getting too lean. Have energy in the gym. Train and just eat.
And as Michael Jordan once said, stop it.
Stop it. Get some.
What the fuck?
If you're gaining for like 12 or 16 or 20 weeks, you start to feel good in your body. You have lots of energy. You start to feel good with your lifts. You're adjusting to your new body.
What Mike just described there, that is hear me out. He's saying, hey, you got your momentum, you're making gains, you're getting stronger. This is all amazing. That's gaining in a nutshell. It just continues to go on and on and on. Now, the difference is it's at a slower rate. You're not going to put on 5 pounds on your bench press every single week. It's slower than that, but it is in fact going to happen.
There are other problems. If you gain weight really, really fast, you bloat up so quickly that your cardio goes to shit.
And so the gaining he's describing here is what you see almost every single bodybuilder do after a show. Sam Sulek, for example, he was 218 pounds, I believe. Now he's 260, gains a lot of body fat, but is it really mostly muscle? Of course it's not. And so you're rushing to gain all this weight. There's no need to rush. Take your time. Even if you're at single-digit body fat and you realize you need to go on a bulk, if you gain too much weight too quickly, it's still going to be mostly fat. Stretch out the gains, and if possible, try to main gain.